Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's noon, 12 p.m. noon here at Yale. Wherever you are, we welcome you to this online student panel. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. We have about 45 minutes because this classroom where we are now will be needed for a class after this. But in these upcoming 45 minutes, the idea is to have a rather free-form, open conversation about anything that's on your mind about what it's like to be a student here at the Yale School of Management. I don't have to even introduce myself. I'm Bruce Delmonico, Assistant Dean for Admissions here at the Yale School of Management. I will be moderating, and we have some wonderful students here who are going to be doing the answering. And I'd love to just start by having you all introduce yourselves.
Sure. My name's Andrew Greaves. I am a third-year joint degree student between the School of Management and the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. Before school, I was teaching English on a Fulbright Fellowship in Malaysia. My internships have been in sustainability in the apparel sector, and I'm headed to Ernst & Young to join their management consulting practice after school.
My name is Khushbu Shah. I'm a class of 2018 second year full-time MBA here at SOM. Before business school, I was working at Google for about 5.5 years. Before that, I worked in creative advertising for about 1.5 years. My internship this past summer was at Paramount Pictures in LA, and I'm unclear as to what I'm doing after graduation.
Hi, I'm Uma. I'm a first-year MBA student here at the Yale School of Management. Before coming to SOM, I lived in New York, and I was working at a private equity firm doing international tax operations. This summer, I'll be joining management consulting at Bain in Houston, Texas. Excited for the heat. And and long-term, I want to go into education consulting.
Hi, my name is Nate Maikon. I'm a second-year full-time MBA student here at SOM. Prior to SOM, I was in management consulting. I spent this summer at BCG in New York City, and I'll be returning there full-time after graduation.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Chen. I'm a second-year MBA student, a full-time one as well. Prior to SOM, right out of college, I went to Chicago to do Teach for America for 2 years. After that, I moved to New York City and did human capital, most recently as a diversity and inclusion recruiter at Oliver Wyman. This past summer, I was in Chicago again. I bumped into a lot of my ex-students, actually. And I was a human capital consultant at Deloitte, and that's where I'll be going back in July.
Great. Well, thank you all for being on the panel. We obviously, as you can see, we have a great panel. They have lots of insights that they can share. We want to tailor this as much to your interests as possible, so please use the Q&A feature on the platform to submit any questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them, but we'll do the best we can to get to as many of them as possible. In the meantime, while those questions are coming in, I do have a couple questions I'd like to start with. And since this is it's a student life panel and it's about life here, but because I'm in admissions and I like to ask admissions-y questions, I would love to start by just having everyone, and not every question will be for everybody, but maybe just go down the line and talk about why you chose to come here to Yale. And I hope, Andrew, if you want to start. Put you on the spot since you're next to me.
Yeah. So my passion, as I mentioned before, is in sustainability. And I was looking for an opportunity where I could have a school that had an interdisciplinary focus and was really driven on conversations and pushing new topics and to be at the frontier of that space. Being at SOM with that set interdisciplinary curriculum, tied with the fact that I could take environmental management courses at the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, made this the perfect fit for me.
I would second that. I think interdisciplinary is the main reason that I chose Yale. Yale has a group of really excellent partner schools, and SOM students have the opportunity to take classes not only at the other graduate schools, but also at Yale College, and I've taken advantage of that. In fact, the best class that I've taken while at SOM was actually hosted by the School of Architecture and cross-listed with SOM. But I also took a class at Yale College. I am now auditing a class at the Yale Law School. You have the opportunity to mix with graduate students across disciplines, which you will learn while at SOM is so important for a future business leader in society, is to have that understanding of how different industries are playing with one another.
I think the reason I chose Yale, I know the reason I chose Yale, is because of the culture and the mission. I think that this idea of educating leaders for business and society is just integral to everything we do here at SOM. It's embedded in the activities we start doing during orientation week. It is integral in all the conversations we have during class, and it kind of sets the tone for the conversations you continue into Charlie's Place, which is our lunch cafeteria, and like conversations beyond. And for me, that was just so important when I was thinking about where I wanted to be and where I want to end up. I wanted to be surrounded by people who would challenge me to think about the larger problems in the world and think about how business can really serve as a way to help solve those problems or play an integral role in solving those problems.
I think largely echoing what people have said before me, the integrated curriculum was very important to me, especially given that prior to SOM, I was in business, and as an undergrad, I was in finance. So I definitely wanted the ability and the opportunity to take classes outside of just SOM. And my favorite some of my favorite classes have also been outside of the School of Management. But I think what really sealed the deal for SOM was when I actually came here for my interview day, and I had the opportunity to interact with students the entire day. I actually left the interview incredibly excited about SOM and all the students who I met, and I didn't feel that way at any other, I don't know if I've ever felt that way after any interview in my life, to be honest with you, but I felt like this real connection with the mission and the students, and I think that's what really solidified SOM as probably my top choice.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, so I reached out to a bunch of students at SOM and at various other schools, and SOM students were always the first to respond back to me and say, let's hop on the phone and let's, chat about it for about 20, 30 minutes. And already that showed just how much they care, not only about the school, but also their future classmates. And secondly, I went to a small liberal arts all-women's college, and I wanted that transition to be a bit easier going into graduate school. And I know at the time that I applied, and still Yale SOM continues to be a school with the highest percentage of women, or one of the highest percentages of women. And I wanted to make sure that, in my sort of education and in my classes, I would feel comfortable in an environment that I had in undergrad, with small class sizes, but also being surrounded with a pretty diverse student body as well.
Great. Thank you all for those answers. We are getting some questions in. I would like to ask one more maybe sort of ground-setting question for everybody. And again, I'm not going to ask everybody to answer every question, but I really would like to get a sense, just to help provide context, of what kind of clubs and activities you participate in, and what kinds of things that they do, just so that the people who are participating here have a sense of what you all do, and that might spur some further questions. So maybe go the other direction. Christine, would you be willing to start?
First off, I'm a member of the consortium. So for a lot of you out there, that might be a way through which you're applying. So I'm a member of that group of students as well. I am and have been for the past 2 years part of student government, more specifically in the role of student life, which creates wonderful initiatives and events throughout the year, including formals, but also Closing Bells, which is our sort of weekly gathering and get together. So I do that, and I also run the Human Capital Club. I co-lead the Human Capital Club, and I've also done some smaller leadership roles in Women in Management and the Community and Inclusion Committee.
Sandwiched in between two student life people here. So I think primarily I'm involved in Out of Office, which is our school's LGBTQ group. In addition to that, I was involved first year and again second year in Consulting Club. And I think one thing that is really interesting about the way that a lot of the clubs here work at SOM is that membership is very broad, and what I generally do is go through the list of all the activities that are happening every single week, what events they're hosting and whatnot, and kind of pick and choose the things that I attend based on what's interesting and what my schedule looks like that week. And I think that's something that is special about SOM here, that there's not like dues or anything, and people can kind of just be malleable every week.
Yeah. I am also in student government. I am the admissions chair, which just means that I get to help Bruce with the welcome weekend events and super interview days and whatnot. I am also a member of the education club, and I'm helping to plan a panel for the Education Leadership Conference, which is happening in a couple of days. So we're gearing up for that. I'm also in the Food and Wine Club, and am TA of the wine class, which is one of my proudest accomplishments. And outside of that, I was also Management Consulting Club and hope to be involved next year as well.
So similar to Nate, my goal coming to SOM was to expose myself to as many different clubs as possible. And I think you're absolutely right. Membership is very broad. It's very easy to see what's happening in marketing club, in tech club, in finance club, all within a week, and you don't have to be a contributing member. So my first year I was a part of consulting club, but this year I've just been attending club meetings left and right. Another thing that I wanted to do in coming to SOM was get involved in the New Haven community. So kind of just looking outside of Yale itself, I've been involving myself in the community. And also Yale School of Drama, which is one of the preeminent schools of drama in the nation, has a student-run theater, and I recently was able to stage my own performance there. So that's something really awesome that I was able to do that SOM students have access to.
Awesome. My clubs have changed a bit over 3 years. I came into a number of organized clubs, working with outreach nonprofit consulting, working with the philanthropy conference, and then I sort of shifted to where I saw some gaps at SOM. So I started the sustainability working group to bring composting and recycling practices throughout the school and connect it to the broader university. I joined a couple nascent groups, the 2050 Fellows, which is a group of future-looking students from 5 different grad schools that talk about challenges that our society will come to face. And one sort of comment I had is that with this group of people, I think you realize like how many different clubs there are, which is kind of mind-blowing for a full-time student body of almost 700 students,
Right.
and maybe 50 clubs. And when I was reflecting on community here recently, I was thinking about how, for me, the defining trait of SOMers is that it's a lot of givers. You know, people come into business school thinking a lot about what they will get out of it, and that's so important. What you can learn while you're here, but something that I think brings us together is that people give their hearts and souls to student government and out of office and the drama program. And that's what makes this, for me, super rich, just interconnected web of community and student life here.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's a great way to sum it up. So the questions are coming in. So I'm going to maybe get a little more targeted going forward. And the participants are cutting right to the chase, asking about career resources and how they've helped you, not joking around. So I'm getting a sense that maybe there are 2 people could answer, and I'm getting a sense that maybe Khushbu and Andrew, maybe you're a little bit more bespoke, a little bit more specialized, and maybe Uma, Nate, and Christine maybe talk more about like the more traditional consulting track. So if maybe one of you would maybe talk about your experiences in sort of career resources, I think that could be helpful.
I can pipe in because I'm uncertain about what I'm doing with my future. So I will say I'm entertainment focused. I want to go into the entertainment industry when I graduate. And there are a group of MBA programs that are very specialized in entertainment and media more broadly. And those are schools that I was considering before SOM. I had a conversation with a mentor where he said to me, you can make a decision for the short term in your career, or you can make a decision for the long term and choose an MBA program that will set you up for the long term. And that is why I chose SOM. What I've run into with the career resources here is that's absolutely how our CDO, our Career Development Office, approaches every conversation with students, is they help you look at the short term and decide where to exit out of your MBA into. But they also encourage you to do things like mind mapping exercises where you're thinking about the 10 to 15 year time frame after you graduate from your MBA and kind of where you see yourself there. And that has helped me to think about what my next steps are. So while I will say Yale is not an entertainment MBA, I think it's setting me up for a future 10 to 15 years down the road that I would probably not have gotten anywhere else.
I think there are a few industries here, or not just here at SOM, but broadly, that have very defined recruiting processes. Consulting is one, iBanking is one, certain tech companies are one. And so if you do happen to go into one of those industries, here at SOM, I think you'll probably be a little a little less reliant on the CDO itself, especially if you are very certain of where you want to go. But what you'll find yourself utilizing, and what I found myself utilizing, is a very strong network of clubs that are set around those professional disciplines. And so I'll speak very briefly about the consulting club because I think it was instrumental in helping me recruit, and it's something that's very special to me, and I know Christine and Uma both used it. But the consulting club is run by second years who successfully went through the process the first year. There's a set of leaders, and then there are a bunch of second years also who give time every single week to meet with first years in a formal way through case teams to help you case and mentor you every single week, as well as just in informal ways for coffee chats to practice, to talk and network and help connect you with people. And so the consulting club meets every single week. It's basically like a class. There's a curriculum. They take attendance. It's very formal. But it's also like very instrumental in helping people, especially people with non-traditional backgrounds, really assimilate and kind of get into the mindset of how to recruit. And I'd say the second thing that was very helpful, and I guess this is managed through the CDO, is the alumni network. And I found myself reaching out to alumni, not only at SOM, but also just more broadly at Yale, even before I started, just to talk about when should I think about consulting, what does consulting look like, what does a recruiting process look like. And I always had great success in reaching out to alumni, networking with alumni, grabbing coffees or drinks with alumni. And that was also very helpful in helping me be strategic in how I approached networking within each of the big consulting firms.
Great. Thanks, Nate. Hope those are great insights. Trying to make maybe a somewhat ham-handed segue from careers to projects. So one question that's come in is, aside from internships, what real-world project opportunities have you had during school? So obviously a lot of the learning happens in the classroom. And there was another question we'll get to maybe about raw cases and how that, in my mind at least, is a little bit real-world, at least in terms of the skills it delivers. But what kind of real-world project opportunities have you had during your time? Maybe if 2 or 3 people have any examples.
Yeah, I'm taking a class right now called Renewable Energy Project Finance. It is taught by an SOM alum named Dan Gross, who brought project finance, financing solar and wind projects, to a large bank. He was working with Morgan Stanley, and the practices that he's developed over the last 20 years, he now teaches as a class. So we through over the course of 10 homework assignments, make this whole financial model that people have walked into interviews with saying, I was able to make this. This is how you would model a solar project finance, and get jobs right from that. And that speaks to the value of the alumni network, alums who come back, and this idea that we can really move pretty smoothly between the academic side and the practitioner side here.
Great.
I could speak a little bit about the raw cases and how we kind of do real life cases in class itself.
Sure.
So what's really incredible about being part of this network is a lot of companies look towards Yale talent and Yale minds to help them solve problems as well. And so we have a number of raw cases that our faculty kind of work with companies to develop, which is just basically a fancy term for a lot of information being thrown at you, and you have to kind of use your real world skills to sift through it and figure out what's the most important. But then you're tasked with preparing certain deliverables, and representatives from these companies will actually come to class for these presentations. And so you'll have this opportunity to present a marketing plan for, like an insurance agency that's doing nonprofit or doing insurance for people who work in the nonprofit industry. And you get these opportunities then to speak directly with the representatives of the company while engaging through the curriculum, which I think is really dynamic. It gives you a lot of opportunity to learn from your peers while also learning like the real life skills, because the representatives will give you direct feedback as well.
That's great. Thank you. And love to pick up or continue on sort of the raw case kind of integrated curriculum question line. There is a question about what are the pros and cons of the integrated curriculum. You talked a little bit about the raw case and some of the sort of benefits of that. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts about the integrated curriculum more broadly. To the extent people don't know, the way our first year course structured is different than what you would experience at other full-time MBA programs, and it's much more interdisciplinary, much more interconnected, trying to break down those functional silos. So any thoughts people have on pros and cons of that approach would be great.
I don't know if this is a pro or a con depending from your background. So I came from a non-traditional background. My daily life was grading papers, talking to kids, connecting with parents, and then my second other daily life was connecting with candidates, conducting interviews. None of that translated very well to our finance class, which was called Sourcing and Managing Funds. So I think one of the pros for someone like me in a non-traditional background of the integrated core is your whole class goes through this experience, and regardless if you have a background in finance or you have a background in consulting or education, you all are kind of built up to that same level. You have the same memories of, oh, that case from that specific class and that, that area of study that you did. I can see it being a con if you, do have a really steeped interest in something or experience in something, and we happen to have a class that's part of the integrated core that you've already studied and actually have lived in. But, I can actually twist that into another pro and say your experiences will probably make that class even better by sharing your real world problems and how you tackled and your analyses for it. So really, I guess I turned my pro/con into just a pro. And it felt, and I felt that it was very, very helpful for me, again, coming from a non-traditional background. So if there are people out there who are worried, hey, I've never done the businessy type of things before in my past life or experience, don't worry. I went through it and it's perfectly okay. And now I'm a business student and I'm, graduating. So it should be okay for everyone else with a non-traditional background.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I think to add on to what Christine said, it forces you to come from a place. I mean, typically when you're entering an MBA program, you have been working in a specialized way. You're most likely not going to have been a generalist. It forces you to see the other disciplines that are involved in any project, internship. I mean, as a manager in today's business, you need to have an appreciation for what's happening in operations, what's happening in finance. And I can speak to how at my internship at Paramount, I essentially had to use all of those skills, and having the integrated curriculum helped me to do that, because when you're working on a project in a group of people and there are specialists that you're working with, to have the ability to communicate to someone what you're looking for from a finance perspective, if you're talking to a marketing person, those are all conversations that the integrated curriculum will help you to have.
Yeah, great, thanks. All right, now I'm gonna put Andrew on the spot. He got called out. But it actually is kind of consistent, I think, with some of the things you were talking about. There was a question about asking if you could talk about how being a joint degree student has allowed you to foster relationships with students at other schools and programs at Yale, which I think you had mentioned is one of the reasons you came to Yale in the first place. So hopefully you have some thoughts there.
Yeah. I mentioned before the sustainability working group. That was a couple SOM students who wanted to think about composting and recycling. But we realized that to maximize our impact, we would need a consistent recycling and composting protocol across Yale University so that we were doing the same things as every other building. And that meant, before you know it, we're talking with PhD economists who are telling us how decision-making breaks down and how people choose trash or recycling. We're talking with architecture students about how we could introduce more novel features that still fit into our buildings the way they are today. We're talking with environmental students about what it means to ship composting an hour and a half to the nearest composting incinerator, and if that still makes sense from an environmental perspective. So because we had a question that by nature called on a lot of expertise that we didn't have, we got pushed into finding people around the university who could answer those questions. And we were consistently met with, just like what Christine was saying, with alums picking up the phone, students around campus responding to emails in an hour saying, great question, when can we get a cup of coffee and chat? So the integration, I don't think you could avoid it if you tried, frankly.
And I hope no one has tried. Shifting gears a little bit, so we've talked a lot about the academics and some of the professional aspects or the sort of the career-related aspects of being here at SOM. There is a question about how you would describe the culture of Yale SOM. So I know it's a kind of a big, broad question, but if 2 or 3 of you had thoughts on how you would sum that up. I think Andrew did a nice job of talking about sort of the community of givers. I think that's a nice way to describe it, but if there are additional thoughts that people have, I'm just going to throw it out there.
Sure, everyone's looking at me because it's a student life. I always get this question, especially when people talk to me one-on-one about SOM. And honestly, there's not really one word that describes our culture. I think, yes, the givers, but I think there are also a lot of people, a way to describe it is that, everyone sort of makes their own sort of culture. If you want to stay home on weekends and read a book and get a book club together, you can do that. You're going to find your people in that way. If you want to go out to a bar and, go party for the weekend, you can do that. If you want to work on a startup in your free time, you're going to find people who are doing that. But I think regardless of who those people are, they are going to work as hard as they can and are very passionate about those individual things. And I think that comes from being such a diverse student body. And being such a small school where you can meet these people easily and know who to go to for those reasons. And I think one other thing that can describe our culture, and is another really big reason why I came to Yale and why I continue to be in the leadership roles that I have, is because we are a smaller school. We are relatively a younger school compared to a lot of our peer schools. You are able, as one person, to make a lot of impact in your 2 years here. You don't know this until you actually come in and spend 2 years in your MBA, but it goes by very, very quickly. And yet you are still able to make that impact at the school at a larger level. And I think you can only do that here in this environment with a lot of people who can support you, those givers, but also a smaller school environment and a school that is newer, open to change. And again, the diverse people around you.
Just adding one thing, and I think it's kind of been hinted at a few times. One word I would use, and I don't think it's the only word, is very supportive. And I think you see that in a number of ways. One, if you have an idea for change within the school, there's a lot of entrepreneurial people here, but obviously it takes other people to support that idea and help you push it forward. And you see that happen all the time. Supportive in the sense of like the career search. When I was, and I'm sure everybody would agree, but when I was going through the career search, even at the most competitive days, there was never a very like zero-sum mentality. The entire networking process is built around connecting with your fellow students and having them help and support you and drive you and push you and teach you and make those connections for you. And I think supportive, even in a very interpersonal way. One of the student groups here that is, I think, most special to me is something called Voices. And Voices is an organization. It meets every Monday. And like 2 or 3 students from the student body get up in front of everybody who wants to attend, and it tells a very personal story. It doesn't always have to be personal, but a lot of times it's something about the past, something that person had overcome, something that they see or think. It's very free-flowing, and I had the opportunity to do it at the beginning of the year. And just the amount of like support that I got after telling my story, and the support that I see other people get when they open up and reveal themselves in a very personal and raw manner, I think is really important in telling about the student body, that even if you don't see eye to eye with everybody all the time, and even if you come from a very diverse background, everybody here is just like on the same page in the sense that they want to see you succeed and be happy. And I've been in a lot of very rewarding workplaces before, but I don't think I've ever seen such like a community, that's a weird, like supportive community, but I don't know. Yeah.
And there's free food at that.
Just one thing, because we've talked a lot about how the student body itself is supportive, which I 100% agree with, but even the faculty and the administration also does a lot to try to make sure that they're changing the program and addressing students' needs and concerns. So the deans have like roundtable discussions all the time. They, take people out for coffee. Our academic dean loves to have people come in and express their views. Our TAs and our professors hold open office hours. They want you to come in. They will take any email you send to them seriously. I sent an email to our macro professor saying he was talking too quickly, and so he immediately stops talking quickly. That seems like something small, but that makes a big difference for a number of our students who don't have English as their first language, or who may have, hearing deficiency. So at the end of the day, like everyone here wants to make this environment supportive and inclusive, and I think that's it's demonstrated by both the student body and the administration.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I know that I'm the moderator, not a panelist, but just to echo those comments, as I've been at Yale for a number of years, one of the words that I tend to associate with the school and have not just at the student level but the faculty level as well is optimistic. And it's not just that the people here are happy, although I think they are, shockingly so for MBA program, but more so that people here feel that they can have an impact, and that's a good thing to do, and they think really about how they can have a sort of positive impact on the world around them, and they're not cynical about that. And I think that's really a nice thing. So I think that's kind of consistent with what you're saying, but certainly something that I've observed over the years. So shifting from SOM, maybe broadening out to the New Haven community a little bit more, question about what are some of the positive aspects of going to school in New Haven? Or it could be negative aspects.
Snow in April.
Yes, exactly.
As it snows today.
It's April 2nd and it's snowing today, so for those of you who are not in the Northeast.
Well, I'll say so last year, one of the most rewarding experiences that I had was I volunteered at an organization called New Haven Reads. So I would say there are a lot of smaller organizations that you can really have an impact at in the New Haven community. And because I'm interested in the arts, it's a very strong arts community. So I did something for the first time in my life, which I never had an opportunity to do. And I lived in New York before New Haven, which is I took a flamenco class, and there's like a world-known flamenco dancer who lives in New Haven and runs classes. So two things that I was able to do and feel that I was, really able to have an impact in those places.
I'm taking this class called Urban Poverty and Development, which talks about economic development and community wealth building. And our final project is to go out into the community and do some sort of final project. So I'm working with the Financial Empowerment Center of New Haven right now in order to essentially help them put together a plan to figure out, how they can really link the Financial Empowerment Center and their services to different organizations that may need it, whether it be homeless or halfway houses, and trying to address those populations and really take the education and the curriculum and the mindset that SOM gives us and use that to better the community around us. And I think that that's something that the New Haven community really appreciates, and the more that we're able to do that, which SOM really facilitates, the better.
Yeah, so I love New Haven. I'm another passionate New Haven supporter. One of my pet peeves is when I ask people about New Haven, they say, I actually like it. They were surprised by it. And that may be a little bit of a dig on the state of Connecticut or whatever it may be. But I think 100,000 person city for me is the perfect size. It'd be hard for me to move to a city this size, perhaps after school. But I had 700 built-in friends through SOM. And then I'm in a city that has an independent movie theater, restaurants from probably 50 different countries, some of the best art galleries in the Northeast, in the British Art Gallery and Yale Art Gallery. I can bike from one part of the city to the other in 8 minutes. I'm a runner, and I'll run up East Rock Park and have a view down to the city. And I've really just come to find that while I didn't know I was looking for a city like this, I get so much of the culture and speakers and excitement that in part is anchored by Yale being here, yet still with a great diversity that allows me to go out into the community and practice my Spanish at local restaurants. So, big fan.
Pizza's good.
And the pizza.
Pizza's always good.
Pizza better.
So expanding out from New Haven even more broadly, obviously we are a very global community, and we, at least certainly in admissions, we talk about the global nature, the global aspects of the experience. So I'd love to get a couple of you to talk about your global experiences and what you've been able to do during your time here at Yale.
I feel like I'm always the first answer, but I'm so eager to share. So Yale belongs to a group of business schools called the Global Network for Advanced Management, GNAM. And at your time at Yale, you'll have an opportunity to either participate in something called International Experience, is that what IE stands for? Or GNW, which is Global Network Week. So there are 2 weeks throughout the year in October and in March where the group of Global Network for Advanced Management business schools will host classes. And that is something that I chose to do. Last year I went to Tokyo and I took classes at ICS Hitotsubashi. And this year I went to Mexico City and I took classes at EGADE, Tec de Monterrey. And I think it was like the 2 best weeks that I've had at business school, because not only do you have an international experience, you get to visit a new city, but you are engaging in a classroom setting. And SOM is a very global community, but this is taking it to the next level. You're engaging in a classroom setting with truly global student body, and you're taking classes and learning from professors who are doing research, publishing in a completely different mindset than some of the professors in the US are. And so you have an opportunity to learn on the ground from companies in the country, from professors who are doing research there, and then to hear directly from students who sometimes they're part-time students, so they're day-to-day still in management roles working at some of these multinational companies with a very regional focus.
I just got back from my international experience. I went to Israel as part of my international experience, and before I went to Israel, like 25 of us who were going to Israel chose to go to Jordan beforehand. And so a huge group of us went to Jordan for 4 days, and then we went to Israel, where we had the curriculum of the international experience, which was focused on innovation and creativity and how the business environment in Israel fosters innovation. And so it was really fascinating because we saw just a diversity of perspective from what these factors are that fosters this environment, and just like a diverse amount of companies that we visited as well. So we saw like an insurance company, we saw like an automatic, one of those like automated vehicle companies. We saw, the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament, like all of these things. And you have all this access largely due to the fact that you have this Yale name behind you, and you have incredible faculty and alumni who are able to help set this curriculum for you. And obviously, like going to Israel, it's the Middle East. There's a lot of conflict in the area, and so getting that diversity of perspective was also important to me, which I thought the faculty did a really great job of making sure that we were able to get multiple perspectives and challenged us to really think about what the issues are that people in that area are facing.
Great. I'm going to pick up on the word, another ham-handed segue, pick up on the word challenge, because one of the questions, to get a little more serious, what was the biggest challenge you faced at Yale SOM, and how did you overcome it? So maybe thinking about a different aspect of the experience. Forcing some thought here.
Self-reflection.
Exactly.
I'll go first because I think it's not going to be a surprise, but my biggest challenge was basically getting over FOMO, which is like the fear of missing out. We're in New Haven and we're at Yale SOM. It's still a small school, but there's still literally a bajillion things that are happening at the same time every single day. And so I think a big challenge for me was I wanted to try everything and very quickly. And, as soon as I got here, I was like, I want to try all these clubs. I want to take all of these classes. I want to take classes not even at SOM. I want to take up 20,000 new hobbies and learn them from all of my new classmates. And it burnt me out very, very quickly. So I think learning to prioritize, especially in fall one when you're getting thrown into 6 core classes, I think that was a huge challenge for me. So I think you might have this idea of what you're interested in and sort of envision your life at business school, but I think it's also a great time for you to sort of stop and reflect and think about how you want to prioritize, and that was a big challenge for me in the fall.
Yeah, I think adding on to what Christine said a little bit, but maybe from a slightly different approach, I also think that here at SOM and Yale broadly, there are just so many special and unique experiences that are happening. And I think it's easy on some level to just get very busy and bogged down and not purposeful in your time and just kind of slide into a typical routine and kind of put on blinders to the diversity of perspectives and diversity of speakers and the diversity of experiences that exist around you. And then you look back and you're like, have I taken advantage of everything that I really wanted to, or have I pushed myself to grow in new and important ways? Because you'll obviously always have chances to grow and meet new people, but rarely again will you ever be or maybe never again, will you be in an environment where there are 700 people who are very different from you. Not everybody is, but a lot of people in a community that brings in like worldwide talent and notable speakers because of Yale and because it's an institution of learning. and it's all in front of you. It's very easy to not take advantage of it, or not force yourself to grow, or not force yourself to take risks that might seem scary. And the thing is everyone around you wants to not only see you take those risks, but is willing to take those risks and learn with you, and not taking advantage of that, or getting bogged down in other things without being mindful of that, I think is very easy. And something that I know I've had to consistently remind myself to do, especially like once you go through recruiting and you're like, okay, all done. Yeah.
Great. I know we have 5 minutes left, so trying to get to as many more questions, probably just a couple more. Looping back to the career side of things, had a couple questions that related to specific industries, and one question about recruitment opportunities for students interested in nonprofit or social impact space, and another about opportunities for students interested in entrepreneurship and innovation. I know in a 5-person panel, it's hit or miss about whether that will overlap with some of the things you're doing or interested in, but I don't know if anyone had any thoughts about either sort of the social sector or the entrepreneurship space.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to the social sector. So one of the other things I did last year was the internship fund. I was the Student Fundraising Week chair. But before I go into that, first of all, a lot of nonprofit or social sector recruiters actually come to campus, including Ed Pioneers. I think Uncommon Schools comes on campus. So we do have like a very good brand when it comes to the social sector. In fact, a lot of recruiters, more than any other business school, come onto our campus than others. And we also have, again, a lot of alums that are easy to reach out to. I think that we also have a dedicated person, if not 2 or 3, in the CDO to help you support in that endeavor. But I think more importantly, because Yale SOM really cares about the and society part of business and society, we fully fund our classmates who go into the social sector over the summer. And the way that we do that is through a combination of fundraising with our classmates through Student Fundraising Week and the internship fund auction, and also some money through the deans. And I know a handful of our classmates this past summer were able to take internships that did not pay anything because they were supported by the internship fund. So rest assured that if you do want to go into the social sector, there's a home for you here. And the internship fund will help you support. And we were the original one. Other schools have copied us, but we were the original one.
Just saying.
Yeah.
What's on entrepreneurship or innovation?
So I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm going into consulting, but I do know that we have a pretty robust entrepreneurship curriculum that's been developed. I know that the faculty head for the entrepreneurship program, Kyle Jensen, is incredibly dynamic, has started a number of companies, and wants to share all of his knowledge with you. And so we do have the Sci-City Center for Innovation. We have an entrepreneurship suite down in the basement where they essentially connect you with the resources you would need and give you the opportunity to really work up. There are also resources that connect you to students across the campus. So if there's a startup idea that you want to do, but you need medical, expertise, you can get linked to a Yale School of Medicine candidate who also has some ideas and wants to be part of that endeavor as well. So there's a lot of structure around that if you're looking for that. Again, I can't speak specifically to it, but I would really encourage you to actually email Kyle Jensen and the Entrepreneurship Suite to really get your questions answered.
Great, thank you. That's a great suggestion, and Kyle's very responsive. Just a couple minutes, hoping to get 2 questions in. The first one is if anyone has thoughts about what has surprised you most about your experience at Yale SOM. Another thought-provoking. Takes a minute.
I will lump this with the challenge question.
Okay.
So I was out of school for about 7 years when I started at SOM, and I think, and maybe this speaks more to this audience, but when I left work, a lot of my colleagues were like, oh, you're going to business school, you're basically going to a 2-year party. And that is not the case. And I don't know if it's the case at other business schools. I haven't attended other business schools, so I can't speak to it. But the students here take the curriculum very seriously. And being a student again can feel very foreign to you if you've been out of school for as long as that I have. But I will say it's a very supportive community. And I think it kind of forces you to think about learning in a different way, that now when I go back into the workplace, I'm going to see everything as a learning opportunity, and maybe even with an academic frame that I never used before.
Great. And I'm going to jump straight to the last question because I know we're right about at time. And just recognizing that the participants here are mostly thinking about business school, looking to hopefully start the application process, whether either this year in our round 3, April 18th, or next year, or even beyond. Any thoughts, insights, advice you can give about your application process, and as you kind of made that decision to apply, where to go, any advice you can give? Actually, we'll try and shoehorn it with a specific question, which was, to what extent were rankings important in your decision to choose business school? You don't have to talk about that, but that was an actual question, so I tried to merge those together. But really just any advice you could give for the participants about the application process.
So to me, I'll answer, I guess, both of those questions. I mean, rankings, I guess you can use as a filter. They exist for what they are. I mean, they're on some level indicative of something. Another thing in addition to rankings that I looked at and that I actually think is probably more important than rankings, but they probably are like somewhat of a self-feeding cycle, is if you know there are specific companies or types of companies that you're looking at which schools they recruit at is honestly more important than rankings, because if the companies you want to work at don't recruit at whatever school you're looking at, then it can be ranked whatever whatever that school is, but it's going to be more difficult to get that job there. So that's, I guess, step one. But answering to the first question that you asked, I'd say is like, be honest with yourself. Do a lot of self-reflection. Figure out, like, is business school really what you want? It isn't for everybody. It's not necessary for everyone. And not every school is for everyone. So take time and get to know the schools that you're applying to, the students that you're that you'd be going to school with, get to know them. And when you're going through the actual application, just be honest and be yourself and be comfortable taking that risk of being like who you are. The school is smart. Every school is smart enough to know, like, when you're being like a facade of yourself or trying to feed them the information or the answers that they want. That doesn't help you. It doesn't help you get aligned with the right school. It doesn't help you get into the school. So just be very honest. And the more honest you are throughout the entire process, from should I go to school to which school should I go to, the better fit of school that you'll get, and you'll be more successful and happier there, because it's a big investment.
That's great.
I'd add really quickly to that too,
Yep.
is like a tactile thing that I did that I recommend is it can be very, very sort of scary to approach a manager or an ex-manager about a recommendation, but take the time to like have coffee with them for like 30 minutes and tell them why you're going to business school, because the more aligned that their recommendation is with your essay, the better package you have. And so I highly recommend doing that. I know it can be very scary, but highly recommend it, especially if you're getting a recommendation from a former manager.
Great. Thank you all. I know we're at time, so why don't we end it there? I want to thank you all for participating, being part of the panel today. Thank you all for being in the session. We hope it was helpful. Hopefully you learned something about Yale SOM, have a better sense of our community, have a better sense even of the process going forward. We look forward to staying in touch with you, whether you're applying again on our round 3, April 18th in a couple weeks, or sometime in the future. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.